Recording. Hi there, Stephen Oliver again. Good to see you. We've got my associates here, Bob Dunn. Say hi, Bob.
Hello, guys.
We work with, I don't know how many thousands of businesses now, Bob, every day in every way, pretty much. And then we have Mindy Godfrey here. So say hi, Mindy, who has worked in multiple niches, but now has worked with innumerable number, as we're going along here, of financial advisors, wealth managers, and other similar professionals. But what we wanted to talk about today is something that I see really missing. And a lot of wealth managers, financial advisors think that they are doing this, but in reality, they're missing the boat altogether. And what I mean is maintaining relationship with their clients. We could call that client engagement, but maintaining relationship, communicating, over communicating with their clients, and being in front of their clients regularly. So we want to talk about that, and let's talk about the rationale. And again, you know, I see a lot of it, anyone on one end of the spectrum, insurance agents at the other end of the spectrum, high level private client wealth managers who end up with a quarterly review or maybe a once a year review. They think that they're doing lots of client engagement because their company sends automated notices by email, or maybe they get regular statements and one thing or another. But that's not what we're talking about. What we're talking about is maintaining relationship, developing your personality and your rapport with that person, and then being top of mind. And I guess the first question is, I want to get Mindy and Bob here, is why do you want to be top of mind? Well, there's a great book you should read. I think it's still in print, by Joe Girard, who was held the Guinness Book of World Records as the #1 car salesman in the world. And if I remember correctly, he had a list of 25 or 26,000 people that he had sold cars to. And one of the things that Joe Girard did is every month, everyone he had ever sold a car to got a card. Sometimes it's obvious. They got a St. Patrick's Day card, they got a Thanksgiving card, they got a Christmas card, they got a birthday card, you can find something every month. But it was always the same, something personal that emphasized his personality. And he always had a common message, which was, I like you, and I've missed you, and hope to see you soon, right? And that's so much different than, I just got a notice from Northwestern Mutual, or I got the notice in the mail of what the asset accumulation is and so forth. You got to shift from corporate stuff to personal stuff, and shift away from relying on email and shift towards having that personal relationship with things. Mindy, pick up on that. We've talked about this a lot in the context of the different organizations that you've worked with intimately and the relationships you built. What would you pick up from that?
Yeah, absolutely. I think that getting to know your clients as a person makes such a difference in the long-term health and relationship of that business relationship as well. Like, especially in this industry, knowing when people have those life transitions, how old are their kids? Are their kids getting ready to go off for college? How are they saving for them? Make a note of their graduation date. Drop a graduation card. That's such a thoughtful thing that will help them remember, oh my gosh, wow, they really know my family. They really care about my family. Same thing when their kids graduate from college, tracking that. I've got friends their kids are all getting married right now. And while a young family doesn't have a lot of times to invest starting out, they're going to need that advice and guidance. So they do have it. And, if mom and dad's financial planner is someone who's been part of that family's life and has sent them those graduation cards, it's going to be a really easy transition for them to think of you, who sent those cards, as somebody they want to go to for advice as they're getting their financial life started. So it's all those little things that really add up into being able to grow that book of business and expand how you connect with the family.
Yeah, absolutely.
And if I could add on, we just had a client recently too, where their daughter was graduating college, and one of the big focuses for them was actually setting their daughter up for making sure she had her future planned out correctly. So
yeah, absolutely. And there's all kinds of ways to do this, but what you want to do in maintaining that client relationship is not be cheap, and you want to be in any ways possible thoughtful and personal. And, you know, there's ways to maintain the relationship one to many, right? So you can send everybody a Thanksgiving card, not necessarily a Christmas card, but a Thanksgiving card or an Independence Day card or something like that. And that doesn't necessarily have to be, I was thinking about your daughter's graduation. But anytime you have a life event that you can tie into, or a special anniversary, any of that kind of stuff, all the better. We use Mrs. Fields cookies a lot. Now, Mindy, what's the silly candy shop there in Nashville that you like?
Yeah, there's it's a signature item from Nashville, Goo Goo Clusters.
There you go.
Yeah.
I just got drug into a candy store in downtown Denver yesterday with Jody and Chase, and I saw Goo Goo Clusters. It reminded me of you.
Yep.
And another great book, by the way, the one I mentioned with Joe Girard is How to Sell Anything to Anybody. And another great book is a book called Giftology, and it's all about building relationships and access and so forth by gifting. Bob, you and I use Mrs. Fields cookies a lot. Another one that we use a lot is Pro Flowers or 1-800 Flowers, if it's appropriate in that case. One of the things that we've done a lot with clients is send them money trees. If you don't know, there's little bonsai trees that you can get that are called money trees. And so we've done that through, I think, Pro Flowers, and even Amazon has them where you can drop ship it. But yeah, ultimately, you know, when people aren't doing this, what they miss is what's the ROI? What's the return on investment going to be on all this stuff? And I see a lot of advisors who can't figure out why they're not getting many referrals. Number two is they'll have a meeting with a client, a quarterly meeting or once a year client, and all of a sudden find out that they bought product or put money with somebody else. And oftentimes it's just a client who you weren't on the top of their mind, or they didn't realize that you could facilitate that service as well. One advisor we talked to recently was long-term care, and their clients didn't even know that that's something they could facilitate. So being top of mind for referrals, top of mind for additional product sales, and frankly, my friend Dan Kennedy, he talks about building a fence around your herd, the herd being your client base, and you could extend it to your prospect base. But there's an awful lot of people out there poaching. I mean, I work in my office with the news on all day, and I must see 20 different financial companies ads on any given day. Of course, you got Fisher Investments, and you got all of the other people who are just constantly pounding it 24/7. You know, you pick up the Wall Street Journal or any related magazine, you're getting hit over the head with it. So what you want to do is you want to build a personal relationship. You want to build a fence around that relationship so they're immune to worrying about what else is out there. You want to be top of mind when the friend at the country club asks them about college savings plan, or when their relative, uncle, nephew, niece, whatever it might be, has needs that they need to develop. So you always want to be top of mind. There's other ways to do that. We'll talk about in a different segment, having books and one thing or another, but you want to be top of mind. You also want to be in front of them, constantly educating them on what they can do. Another thing, and, we're still, when we're recording this anyway, recent to the crash of the market with COVID. Well, there's two types of wealth managers in a situation like that. There's those who hit under the desk, hoping that their clients weren't going to call them and sell off. And there's those who proactively communicated with all of them. And that communication could be this platform, Zoom. It could be one-to-many. It could be by videos. It could be interactive with many people at a time. It can be reaching out, asking them to initiate an inbound call to catch up with what's going on. Or it could be my friend Peter Harnish. He has 600 or so clients, but he took his top 150 and literally spent 3 weeks dialing. And frankly, he had a connect rate that surprised me, like 95%. But he was just dialing every one of his clients, and most of them were short conversations, and some of them led to additional sales. Some of them led to additional investment. I was talking to him one day, and he was picking up a check for $100,000 for additional investment. But most of them, it was just calming their nerves, keeping them from freaking out, and being in that expert role with them. But Mindy, let's give them some other examples, or Bob, let's give them some other examples of
Well,
that. Go ahead, Bob.
One of the things that I wanted to point out, though, with what you had just said is how much easier it is today to really collectively get our guys together, right? Bring them and get in front of them to have these conversations. It's not like in the past where you had to fly out to a location, have a meeting room and all of that with Zoom and the other platforms out there today. The communication bridge has shortened so much. I mean, there's no reason why you can't be in front of everybody regularly.
Yeah.
Go ahead, Mindy. I'm sorry.
Oh, I was gonna say, yeah, and there's tools to do that too, where you're gathering the registrations of who's going to sign in for this gathering. You can get that information, but then also really easily send out follow-ups afterwards, so that it's not just they see you on the screen; they can hear from you afterwards. And there's the tools to personalize that. So again, that one-to-many, but being able to be personal about it.
You bet. You bet. Well, and I see a lot of people, a lot of these conversations I've had, they're like, well, my clients would never want to be on a webinar, or they would never want to be on a group meeting because they don't want to talk about their personal finances in that setting. Well, maybe we do a lot where people are very sharing and very open about things. But on the other hand is you can have a dialogue. You can have a dialogue about the direction of the markets. You can have a dialogue about college investment. You can have a dialogue about retirement planning. You can have a dialogue about long-term care. Anytime there's a rule change, maybe the company that you're working with, use the example of Northwest Mutual, they did some pretty significant changes with life insurance during the pandemic situation. So that's something you can invite everybody to show up, and you can express rule changes, ask questions about that, show them other things that might be opportunities. And you can do, instead of having to talk to 150 people at once, you can invite 600 people to show up. Not going to get 100% show rate, but you're going to have that kind of additional support with them, right? So, Bob, tell them a little bit about some of the things we do with clients and listening and gifting in that arena.
Some of the things that we do in a sense, as far as, whenever there's an occasion, or if we find out there's something personal in their life that's maybe impactful, could be medical, could be birthday, doesn't matter, but we're very active or proactive in making sure that we're sending out, like you said, either some flowers or something personal, let them know that we care and we're thinking about them. And that's very impactful because you become then priority on their list to, that since you're aware of them, they're obviously going to be aware of you in exchange. Somebody, I don't know, I'm at a loss.
Well, I'll help you out. When we get a new quality prospect, they get a big package of Mrs. Fields cookies, right? And then they get another package with caramel corn and popcorn. Then they get some free books in the mail. When we get a new client, they get, what some people are called a shock and awe package, but they get a big package. And it's not something we promise, because then it's not like they're paying us and we're telling them they're getting this. It's just they get this package, usually kind of unexpected in the mail, and it's got CDs and DVDs and all of that kind of material, as well as other materials. And then, fairly unexpected, they'll get another package in a month with, again, more robust content. In addition to that, we automatically subscribe. Are we doing cookies or fruit now, Bob? I forget.
No. Yeah. Popcorn.
There you go. But we have subscription services where they can automatically get, like Harry and David, if I remember correctly, does this. Mrs. Fields does this. Other people do it. I forget where we're getting the popcorn. But every month they can get a shipment. So basically you go put it in and tell them if you want it for a year or 6 months or 3 months, and it just automatically drop ships, right? So that's an example. But excuse me.
And that's an impactful part too. Over delivering. That's one of the things that we've always tried to, I think it's really stood us out more than anyone else, is that, definitely on the front end, we're promising some of the things to you obviously, but on the back end, we're also layering and overlayering and over delivering.
Yeah, and it's not in the context of pay me $5,000 and I'll put together your complete plan. And by the way, here's a checklist of stuff you're going to get from me, right? That is just, there's no reciprocity built in it. And by the way, I hate to keep, recommending books, but another one is Influence, Science, and Practice by Robert Cialdini. And one of the key principles of persuasion that he talks about is the principle of reciprocity. And the way you get reciprocity to kick in is you gift and you gift and you gift. And 95% of human beings, what happens in their mind is, oh, now I owe that person back, right? So, it's like we go out to lunch, I buy you lunch, you think you owe me lunch back. But if all of a sudden they're getting cookies and they're getting food is useful, but they're getting cookies and they're getting flowers and they're getting a money tree and all that kind of stuff, it just builds up that sense, which helps to spark referrals, helps to spark additional purchases or additional investment, helps to spark, continuing
Communication as well.
Yeah.
I mean, it's just it really becomes, you become so much closer and bonded, because I can't tell you how many times, even with our clients, we send out the gifts here or there, and they're so grateful and so thankful. I get personal phone calls, you do too, from so many of them, really appreciating that we took the time, thought about it, and did something about it.
Yeah, we're spending a lot of time talking about gifts specifically, but what I see most advisors, wealth managers do is either they rely on what their company CRM does automatically. They get an email that's corporate and it's generic, and maybe if it's really trick, it has a little picture of them and their tagline on it, but it's not really an engaging in a personal dialogue. And then often when they move beyond that, they worry about compliance and all this stuff. Like, I got to tell you, no matter where you're at, the compliance officer isn't going to be mad that you sent out a Thanksgiving card, right? The compliance officer isn't going to be mad that you sent a, happy St. Patrick's Day card or a happy Independence Day card. So all of that kind of stuff of just dropping in the mailbox every week. See, if I had my druthers, it would be every special event in life, they were going to get a little gift. And the listening is the hardest part, and understanding where it is. All of the automation is easy nowadays with all the CRM systems and all of that. You have fields, can remind yourself, all of that part is easy. It's knowing what it is to begin with is a difficult thing. But if they got a card from you that was unexpected, and I don't mean once a year they get a Christmas card, I mean they got a Happy Mother's Day, Happy Father's Day, Independence Day, I don't know what the hell holidays are in August, but something every month. Then if they were getting a newsletter from you, preferably in the form of a personal looking letter. Here's what's going on, and by the way, I know that a lot of people are worried about this, and here's my take. A lot of people are concerned about this, and here's my take. And by the way, you may know it, but here's a product offering that you probably need. I don't know if you knew or that we had it available, but just something that's personal. In fact, I'd rather it be, a letter about the ski trip you just took, or the trials and tribulations of the vacation you took, more so than it all being about product knowledge. But incorporating all that builds a relationship that's just, hard to, the value is hard to quantify. What would you add to that, Mindy?
I'd say along that line, when you're doing those like quarterly newsletters or half year, something I have had a lot of success with is throwing in a little treat. Yeah. A package of nuts, a bag of microwave popcorn, a $5 Starbucks card or local coffee shop card. Just, with a little note of, hey, here's something to snack on while you take a look at this. And it's really funny because it's always been something really small, but people are just tickled. It's like, oh, okay. And they actually do spend a few more minutes with that, what can be a very form, report or whatever, they've actually spent a few more minutes interacting with it while they're opening their snack or taking a look at what they've got. And once they've if you've got the information they really need in there, then they're really actually going to take the time to go through it rather than drop it in that stack of mail on their desk.
Yeah, yeah.
And if they're comfortable with you and they feel you're nice to them, obviously they'll be more open to having you speak or talk to one of their friends.
Yeah, I heard somebody say recently it's better to be different than to be better, and I say it's better to be better and different. But you think about that, and so many in this industry, they're worried about, okay, the photo doesn't have me in a jacket and tie, or that's not professional enough. Well, really what people respond to, and I don't care whether they make 5 million a year and they have 50 million sitting in investment accounts, or whether they are just getting started with all of those needs. What they respond to is another human being on the other end that they build trust in and that they like. So no amount of proving that you're professional and proving you're smart does you any good if they don't think you like you and you have their best interest at heart, right? And it's building that personal relationship. And again, like you mentioned, Mindy, in the envelope, in a marketing jargon, sometimes we call that a grabber or lumpy mail, right? So I send an envelope and, maybe there's a challenge medal in it of some sort. Maybe there's a plastic race car. Maybe it's a letter with a real dollar bill attached to the top, or if it's a big account, $100 bill attached to the top. But having that kind of stuff, and I mean, all of the kind of silly stuff, you can get at Oriental Trading. Hell, you can even get it at the dollar store. But you want to tie it in some way. I mentioned as far as gifting, a lot of like stuff that they consumables, right? It's why, again, at the higher end advisors, take them out to Morton's or take them out to Capitol Grill because people appreciate you feeding them, and there's just a psychology that goes with it. But sending them a report with popcorn attached or caramel corn creates the same triggers and has the same impact in their mind. So one of the things that you can do with that is, if you were doing, let's say, a monthly newsletter, is my friend Lee Miltier, you guys know Lee, I just got off the phone with her for supposed to be 15 minutes, turned out to be an hour and 15. But one of the things she does, she sends out a package to all of her clients every month, but she'll put it in like a bright purple bedazzled folder and put some kind of, a strange pencil, with a weird eraser on it or something like that. Or she'll send a little writing pad, like a small version of this that's pink or crazy colored or bedazzled or something. And, hardly anything she ever puts in an envelope is something that I would use, but it reminds me of Lee. I chuckle when I get it. Usually I'm re-gifting it to, somebody who will appreciate it. But something like that's just different and not stuffed shirt, not corporate, but is that reminds them of you and is unique, is helpful. So let's pull all this together and summarize this, right? So one thing that you want, and by the way, we didn't even touch upon really email and text messaging and all that stuff. And there's an important reason for it. Email is dying a slow and very painful death, right? With Herc at home, especially with the COVID thing, is there was a spike. People are homeschooled and they're paying attention to it. But generally, email never feels personal at this point. I think the stat is the average person's getting like 220 emails a day, and the higher they are on the socioeconomic status, unless they're high enough that they've just gotten rid of email altogether and it's read by their assistant or something, which is ultimately the people that you want to be involved with at the highest levels. But really, email is dying, but the average person is getting like 220 emails a day. Nobody sits and looks at their computer and goes, "Oh, goody, I've got email." I saw the movie recently that you've got mail. Well, okay, so Tom Hanks and Meg Ryan, and they're sitting at their computer watching for that one email to come up. Great. That's long dead. However, people appreciate things that come in the mailbox physically. In the demise of email electronically, what we know is that text messaging still has about 100% open rate, has nearly 100% rate of people reading it, and has a much higher response rate. So if you can, still do email if you want, but overlay text messaging for important things, more urgent things, and more personal is still going to be, talking to them face to face, talking to them on video conference, talking to them on the phone. But, just below that, it's they get a package in the mail, they get what is or looks like a handwritten note, they get a note card. I should have my note cards here. I have note cards that all kind of look like this. They have this silly picture of me pulling my hair out, but they get a note card from me. That's the return address label. And then the note card looks the same way, just like this. Well, that doesn't look like the typical, I bought it at Barnes and Noble thank you note, right? So, people remember it and pays attention. Plus it's kind of, silly, but a little outrageous. So you want to have some kind of card going to them every month, preferably a newsletter going to them every month. I'd love to see you getting to get everybody on a video conference on very specific topics, and you can do a little presentation. And if it has to be a pre-planned PowerPoint that your company put out, fine. But that doesn't mean you can't do Q&A and you can't, have open engagement with that. But starting with that, and then on the other end of the spectrum, lots and lots and lots of gifting. And you've got to know what the average lifetime value of a client is. We were talking to somebody the other day, and his primary clients are paying him $99 a month, and he does a quarterly review with them. Well, if your average client is worth $1,000, $1,200 a year, it's one thing. On the other hand, if your average client is worth $10,000 to you, that changes the dynamic of what you can do and what you can invest, and how much you can invest to get them, and how much you can invest to stay in front of them. So, Mindy, what would you add to that? Bob, what would you add to that? And we'll call it a day on this one.
Bob, you want to go? Or you want me to go?
Go ahead. Yeah.
Yeah, I think that the big thing is just, take advantage of those CRMs that you have and really keep good notes and use those tools that you have so that you can be, truly genuine, truly personal, and connect with people one-to-one.
Yeah. And I mean, just on this area, and like you mentioned, there's a lot of other topics and areas to really reach out and touch someone. But well, one of the things we have noticed is the massive missed opportunity by people not taking action on all of these little facets that you were discussing.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. Well, let's call it a day on that note. We'll pick up next time on really creating effective referral systems. And again, in this industry, I think what most people do who are mediocre but not necessarily thriving is the entirety of the referral system is asking people who they know. And you should ask who they know, and you should have a good script for asking people who they know. But we find most of the referrals come from higher leverage activities and events and so forth. But that's a topic for another day. What we might remind everybody watching this video, if you're a thriving practice but you're ready to jump by 25% or double, we'd love to chat with you. Probably the best route is to give Mindy a call, and she can put an appointment on the calendar. Her number is 303-808-8719. I'll memorize that someday, but I've got it written right there.
Okay.
So again, that's 303-808-8719. And by the way, we always we have a couple of books, another one in the pipeline if I ever get it done. A couple of free reports and a couple of really valuable videos, I believe, one by Lee Motier and one by us with Greg Moody as well. But you can get that at advisorwealthmastery.com and go there. It's free. There's no obligation. but it's enough, you know, there's a lot of good content there, but it's the Mile High Maverick book, the Everything I Wish I Knew When I Was 22, a free report on social media marketing for financial advisors, and then 10 things you must do to build your practice for financial advisors, as well as a couple of useful videos. But anyway, thank you so much for joining us today, and we'll follow up with referrals and additional client engagement strategies in the days to come here.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
So much.